34-30, your final score here at the Cotton Bowl. Number 12, Oklahoma takes down number 3, Texas, giving the Longhorns their first loss of the season. Tommy Yarsh alongside Eric Henry. Eric, biggest takeaway in this one, Texas's offensive woes in the red zone, continuing to rear their heads, especially today in a first and goal situation. The Longhorns unable to punch it in, and that could have been the deciding factor in a 4-point ball game. Eric, how do they fix this issue going into the bye week?
I mean, it's arguable whether that specific sequence was the deciding factor, but there's no doubt you can make the case what was the deciding factor overall were the red zone struggles the entire time. Having to settle for 3 points, he had, I believe it was 3 tries, may have been 4, and you only get 3 points in the red zone. That is, in fact, the deciding factor in this ballgame. Steve Sarkisian's talked about it, right? You know, last week he was asked about the red zone struggles, and he said, hey, you know, we're a 5-0 team. You can make whatever you want to from stats. We're a 5-0 team. Well, now, that stat did come back to bite Texas in the behind where it hurts, right? Now it's given them their first loss, and it's something that when I asked him post-game, he said they got to coach it better, they got to emphasize in the bye week. We'll see what happens. Listen, it's very hard, and we wrote about this on Going 24/7, Tommy, to live by the big play, live by the chunk play, whether it's those 25, 30-yard runs by Jonathan Brooks, or those big plays that go to Xavier Worthy or A.D. Mitchell. Those things are great. They get the offense fired up and they're phenomenal. But again, it's hard to sustain those things throughout the entire season. Expect that to be your main method of success in terms of scoring, putting points on the board.
Defensively, this was, I think it's safe to say, the worst performance of the year for the Texas defense, and a little bit of a surprising point at that, considering they played very well in the second half. And all the players we spoke to post-game talked about how confident they were going into that final drive. Oklahoma had the ball left with just over a minute to play, and simply put, said by Steve Sarkisian and his players alike, they didn't execute. Well, now they have to execute with already one loss on the season. You can't afford to lose again if you want to compete for a college football playoff and a Big 12 championship. How do they go about correcting those issues and getting back to playing their style of football?
Well, Tommy, it was uncharacteristic, to be completely. I mean, you talked about the first time this year, whether their Texas defense's worst performance of the year, but especially going against a mobile quarterback. Pete Kwiatkowski, go back to his time, even at Washington, has had a history of playing well against mobile quarterbacks, even earlier this year against a Jalen Milroe. But, Tommy, I do want to say this. This may have been the game that Texas could have seen last week. Hear me out. I'm not saying that Kansas wouldn't beat Texas by any stretch of imagination. However, going into that game, they talked about Jalen Daniels being someone who scrambles to throw. That is essentially what Dylan Gabriel is. Despite the fact that he had the 44-yard long run, he's a guy who's going to use his legs to find opportunities upfield. And Steve Sarkisian talked about in his postgame, right? He had too many opportunities to scramble this way, up in the pocket, as opposed to this way, aside from the pocket. That helped create plays. So Texas defense, again, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but they needed to kind of face that reality and go about fixing it, and they'll have the bye week to do that.
So now Texas gets punched in the mouth, I think it's safe to say, for the first time this season. They lose their first game. Eric, I think it's safe to ask, can we see these two teams meeting up again for a Big 12 championship come December?
Tommy, it's a safe bet. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't see that matchup. And quite frankly, you take a look at the rest of the Big 12, it's very clear. We watched the two best teams in this conference on the field today, maybe two of the best teams in the entire nation. So I do think Texas will have, about 6-7 weeks to get this fixed in terms of what they need to fix to compete with Oklahoma again. But I don't think there's any doubt that we'll see this matchup in December.
I absolutely agree with you. Hard to argue that after today. A phenomenal game from start to finish here at the Cotton Bowl. Had us on the edge of our seats. Texas comes out on the losing end. They will head to the bye week this week, and then Houston the week prior to face off the Cougars at home. They're one of the new Big 12 teams as Texas makes the final run through the conference. That's going to do it from us here at the Cotton Bowl. For Eric Henry, I'm Tommy Yarsh. For the rest of the crew, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.